latest top tips, reviews and advice, please subscribe below.
Hello and welcome to Attwoolls Outdoors with me, Mike. Sending you guys a bit of a sort of pitching video on a new product from Kampa. So with me here today, I've got the Kampa Shelter 300. So it's basically a poled version of kind of their air shelter. They've done it for a few years now. So all we do is basically go through the setup and show you kind of how simple it really is to pitch. To be fair, I would definitely say it's more of kind of a fair weather product, just as a shelter. We've got fiberglass poles, so obviously it's quite inexpensive, but they've got a bit of flex to them. So really, there are additional walls that come included with the actual awning, with the tent. So you basically put those in afterwards. So put those across here for the time being, set up the main body and kind of go from there. First thing you want to do is kind of spread it all out. Now, it's actually about 3 by 3 meters. So it's quite a nice sort of size, hence kind of the 300 name. You've got kind of a lot of webbing straps to sort of kind of locate. So what you want to do is start in one corner, we'll spread it out. So we'll start here. You want to get good sort of tension on the actual point as well. I find it's probably easiest to follow the strap along the base. Just make sure you get it nice and square. One thing you can find is sometimes you can mix them up a little bit as and when you see fit. So we'll go there, we'll go straight from there, just peg directly through kind of the loop. You want it as kind of it suggests to be completely rectangle, well, not rectangle, but square at least, with kind of the webbing strap facing up. So now from here, it's always a problem when you've got these extra guide points, making sure they open up. As long as the base is pretty much square, then you shouldn't have a problem. You can find sometimes they get a bit twisted, but it's no real hardship. You can always tweak this at a later date if you feel, you know, it's out on one side, it's not dead parallel to one another. So, once we've kind of got that part sorted, next thing is we'll get our poles out. Both poles are the same length, it doesn't really make a difference on which way you put it. The best thing to do is sort of feed them through on the floor first and erect it. Ideally, because they cross over, what you really want to do is always have a second pair of hands so someone can just give you a hand in the middle. Awesome, without that sort of luxury today, so we'll just go a bit steady as we go. So assemble the poles in full, I'd say. Just that way it makes it a bit easier when we're sliding everything out. At this point here, I'll just go quick check we've not got anything kind of twisted. That's not too bad. Straight, 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 and straight. Perfect. So we'll just get the other pole sorted. Now, it runs in the same kind of material as the air version, merely you're just paying for the convenience of the air. Admittedly, I would probably say the air, from a structural point of view, is going to be a bit stronger, but certainly from the price points, the poled is definitely a bit keener on that side of things. You've got some good sort of size poles, I think they're about 11 mil looking at it, so it's a good kind of decent spec. Some pre-angled joints as well in the corners, just to kind of increase that internal height. We have got obviously a separate review video on this kind of item as well, if you wanted to really kind of get to grips with it. There we go. So you want to kind of make sure the pole's about equal either side. Like I said, there is kind of a joint, a lot of kind of curvature joint that ideally needs to be on either way. So we'll just take this pole back out and around to make sure it's not going too far, and then back on here. So, I mean, you've got guide points included, because almost you've got essentially a crossover period, so almost the sides, what's really kind of would give it a bit more extra strength, just because, you know, if you imagine you've got sort of crossing over, you've got more play in kind of the ankle part there. So it's definitely more of, like I said, a fair weather shelter, as I said earlier. But it's a great addition, and it gives you a bit of extra sheltered space for cooking underneath. The material's flame retardant, so just kind of gives you a bit more extra options. Also, I see it a really good idea for if you're going to kind of a football event, you know, kids kind of sports day, anything like these kind of shelters, or even the garden, for example. They're a good little kind of throw up for when you necessarily need them. So again, same thing, bringing it back either way makes life a lot easier when it is. You can always compare this video as well to kind of the air version, which you see kind of is a bit easier. Right, so now we've got this, I would suggest there's almost an under and over in the cross section. Start preferably with the kind of the under, just because it's going to support the over one as well. So if we kind of go push it out that way a little bit, feed one in place, just quickly overfeed that. Ideally you want kind of it on the full length out. Now this is where really a second pair of hands will come and help, because you can always have one person lift up this section here, support it, especially if it's a windy day. You want to make sure you've got enough support going through. Fortunately, like I said, I've got to manage this on my own today, but it can be done on a steel day. If need be, dig the pole into the floor. It's going to give you a little bit more play to it. As soon as you've got that one bit in, I would advise probably clipping it on just to make sure it's properly supported. It shouldn't really kind of go anywhere. As you see, it's kind of a flexing part. That's where you need the other side to make things a bit easier. As I'm on this area here, what I will do is actually probably just pop my one pole in there initially, just to kind of get the ball rolling on that side. In you go. And then from here, we'll just elevate it up a little bit more, feed that pole through. Again, digging it into the ground just to kind of keep it nice and stable. And then from there, it's just a case of going around, clip it on. I would try and do opposite sides, just means it gets an equal tension on both ends. And again, make sure the kind of fabric's not catching anywhere. The angle joint ideally wants to be in that middle section, just because it's kind of there's a material kind of loop for it as such. Wicked. So like you see, there's a bit of kind of a bend with it. The key thing is making sure obviously you guide it out. That's to give it its kind of real strength. Ideally with the guide points, you want to kind of go along where the poles are going itself. So again, kind of crossing out directly from here. Initially, because obviously kind of it's a bit more, should we say, wobbly, again, it's a good idea to go opposites when you're pegging this point out, just to make sure it's not too far one way or the other. As long as you're kind of along that seam line, it should be pretty decent. Again, you've got the ability of adjusting, so you can tweak it a little bit from each side if you need to. And then you've got some additional pegging points just along the bottom of each point, just to kind of bring that out. And that's going to kind of, again, you want those kind of dead square. It's going to add a little bit more stability to each section as well, which is certainly a bit of a bonus. But it kind of also brings the material a little bit tauter. And again, you want those almost like kind of a right angle. Follow kind of the webbing strap lines. Now, for more information, you can always check kind of the link below this video to show you kind of more information about kind of the pack sizes, the current price and so forth. We've also kind of got the little video review built into that at the same time, so you can check out that and learn a bit more about the product itself. To be fair, what we kind of discuss here is pretty much the majority part of it. Pegs are obviously included, and the joys of kind of the pole structure is that if, God forbid, you have some, wind or whatever, and it kind of causes any damage, essentially you can quite inexpensive to replace. The walls are included in, like I said, they're just a blank section of wall, and we'll just insert those in just a moment, or at least insert one to give you a bit more of a better idea. But great sort of interior height in here. Now we'll grab just one wall for the time being. The walls itself will actually toggle in place, so you've got almost like a straight ridge directly across here, so there's little kind of points at every stage. So all I just do is open it up. You want almost like the shiny side out, so you kind of, doesn't really matter too much, I'm being perfectly honest with you, but for me it looks a bit smarter, it's a bit more in keeping with the actual day tent such itself. This is where you can get the joys of the wind. Obviously with the 4 sides included, it kind of gives you the flexibility that you can, pick and choose. You want it completely enclosed or just block a bit of the wind out. There's a bit of an overlap as well. Not a massive amount, if I'm being honest, but it's enough to kind of just give you that ultimate amount of privacy. And then we're going to peg the points down. Actually, there's a little log down the side as well, just to kind of keep it a bit tighter, which is actually that works wonders. That kind of makes a big difference actually. And there's 2 eyelets in place, so it's simplistic but effective. And then finally we got the points either side. I'm going to take these underneath the bit that we kind of pulled out. So that kind of flap that we brought out earlier, again, it's more kind of like an overlap. So we'll just make sure that we're kind of tucking it in like so. And again, you want a good enough amount of overlap to make sure it covers it and you're not getting that wind in. By doing it each corner first, you can get the tension right each side. And then finally, kind of do one initially. But yeah, off the great side, simplistic to do, and then you can create whatever combination you really like. So that's kind of in a way how simple it really is to pop up kind of the Kampa Shelter 300. Admittedly, I've not done all the walls, but one's the same as 4, eh? Like I said, more information, check the link below with all the information about the pack sizes, weights, overall floor dimensions, and all the information you've got, as well as sort of the free deliveries and things like that we do as well. But by all means, let us know what you think in the comments box below. It's always great to have feedback from you guys and see what you believe, or if you've got one, how well it performs. So yeah, that's kind of the new Kampa 300 Shelter.